Hi, I'm Warren, and welcome back to this absolute beginner's introduction to Power BI. Okay, let's start right at the beginning. Where can we get Power BI from? So the best place to get it would be to go to the Microsoft Store on your PC. You can search for Power BI, and you'll see Power BI app comes up here. You can click on that. I already have it, but you can click on download and it will be on your computer. If you are trying to get Power BI and you in a corporate environment where maybe you don't have the Microsoft Store, you can go to Power BI's website. You can Google, download Power BI desktop. When you get to Microsoft Power BI at the following URL, you can go down and it gives you the option to download the desktop file. Just a note on this. Every month, Microsoft do updates to Power BI where they add additional functionality and they add functionality that we've been asking for. That won't automatically be in your desktop version if you download the actual software from the Microsoft site. You might have to go in and keep downloading to get the latest version. If you go via the Microsoft App Store here, it'll automatically update to the latest version. So I recommend out of the two, if you can, use the Microsoft Store. So once you've downloaded that, let me close this file quickly. We would want to go in, you would click on your Power BI icon, it's this little icon here, and you'd want to open a new file. So let me just quickly open a new file here. Give me a second, there we go. So I'm opening up a new desktop file. So while this is opening, we use Power BI Desktop to do all the development in Power BI. So this opens now, and you can see this is the desktop version of the software. This is where you develop everything you want to build. Once you've built your Power BI model, you then publish it to the Power BI service, which is in the cloud. That is where your users or the consumers of your reporting will find the reports that you've published, and that's where they will actually get access to them. So what we're going to do, we're going to build in the file here. So what do we want to do? We want to get data. So we can close this window. Here is your canvas where we're going to build everything. We have the visuals that we can choose from, and we have a little data pane here. You can see there isn't data yet. So what do we want to do? We want to try a sample data set. We can get data from other sources like I'll show you now, but for now we're going to use the actual data that Microsoft give us. So we're going to click on that. It comes up with this window and you just click load sample data set. You'll see it'll go and import the financials table. So this little window comes up here, and if you see, we have a financials tab. If we click on that, it creates a little preview of the data. And this is the exact data I showed you in the previous video. So we can just tick that we want that financials data, and we can click on load. This transform data button will take you into something called Power Query, which I'll show you now. And that will allow you to make changes to the data when you import it. I'll get into a little bit more detail in a minute or two. Let's just load it for now. So we'll click on load. You can see here, it's going through and it's loading the data into our model. And there we have our financial data. If you expand it, the table name is financials. If you expand, these are the columns in our data. So again, if we look at the navigation on the left-hand side, we have our report view. So whatever visuals we build will be displayed on the report view. Below that, we have a little picture of a table. That is our data view. So if we click on that, we can now go and we can view the data. And if we had multiple tables, whichever table is selected will be the data that shows here. So if you had multiple tables, you would click on them and you could view the data. So this is where I showed you the data in the previous video. You can see it's exactly the same. We have segment, country, product, etc. If we go down to model view, that would show you all the tables you have and the relationships between the tables. Like I explained, we would normally have a sales fact table, and we might have a country table that is joined, a product table that is joined, etc. That is a more advanced topic, and that we'll get to in the next course when we do sort of an intermediate look at Power BI. But for now, we have everything in one table just to keep it simple. So here's our table, and we would see all other tables if we had more in this view. Here we can view the actual data for each table, and here we can view the visuals and what we've built. This is our canvas. This is where we will drag and drop all of these visuals here. And here you can see we get a lot of options. We have bar charts, we have line charts, we have tables, we have the matrix like I showed you in the previous video. So we can choose multiple options here. And whatever option you choose, all the properties for that particular option will be available here. So as we go, we'll go through all of that detail. In this video, I want to show you how to get the data and the navigation in Power BI. So let's go through the file menu quickly. We have the save icon if you want to save your file. It's very similar to any other tool you might have used. We have open, save, save as, etc. So let's just save our file if you haven't saved it as yet. Under home, you'll see all the options we have on this ribbon here. And as you choose different headings, the ribbon options will change. So we've got get data. So although we already have data, we're using the sample data, I will show you how to get other data sets if you ever need them. So if we click on the drop down, we can pull data from Excel, other Power BI data sets, data flows, Dataverse, SQL Server, analysis services, etc. If you click on more, it'll give you a full list of everything that you can connect Power BI to. And there are a lot of data sources. That's what makes it so powerful. You can have one dashboard pulling in data from Excel, from an Access database, from SQL Server, from a DB2 database, and from an online web page, and you can show all that information in one dashboard. So here, as I scroll through, you can see you can connect to multiple options. You can filter them by file, so you can pull files from a folder, text, JSON format from SharePoint. You can pull data from pretty much every database system out there. They offer the open source options too, like MySQL. Power Platform, you can pull from other Power BI datasets, data marts, the Dataverse, data flows. From Azure, if you have any data sitting in Azure in the cloud, you can pull from your data lake storage, Cosmos DB, from an Azure SQL database. Online services, you can go to SharePoint. You can pull data from your OneDrive. You can pull from LinkedIn, from Twitter, any kind of online platform. If you are connected to things like web trends, etc., QuickBase, all of these you can pull data from. And then other, you have your other options here, Exchange, Google Sheets, etc. So you can see there are a lot of options. And all you would do is choose the data type or the database you want to connect to. Oracle, you would click connect, put in your credentials, and you would see all the tables that are available in that data source. Here they give you shortcuts for the most common. So Excel, you don't have to go through the whole menu option. You can just click on Excel and connect. Data Hub, SQL Server, or you can actually enter data. So say you just want a table with a couple of values, and you can create your own little table and you can save it. Dataverse is again one of the Microsoft data options where you can go and connect and pull any data you have in Dataverse. It'll show you the most recent sources you have here. Under transform data, when we were importing our financial data, it gave us the option to load it directly or we could transform it. This transform option is what we could have chosen on that. I'll go into it now to show you what it looks like. So let me just bring this back to this window. I'd open in a different window. This is what window opened now. This is called Power Query. And this really adds the power to Power BI. Here you have the ability to perform ETL. So you can extract data from data sources, you can transform that data, and then you can load it into your Power BI tables. So here you can see we only have one table at the moment. It's our financial table. And here it gives you a view of the first 1,000 rows. We only have 700. So in the bottom left-hand corner, it's showing you there's 16 columns and 700 rows. But if you were connecting to a table that has maybe 10 million rows in, it would only show you the top 1,000 rows. So when you're connecting to a data set, it is always better not to do what I did and load the data directly, but to go into this view where Power Query pulls a sample of the data. Because you can imagine if you just went in and loaded all 10 million records up front, that could take time, and you might not need all 10 million. We might only need government. So we could say, let's first view it to transform it before we load the data, and we could choose a particular channel, for instance, or segment to filter by, and then only load that channel that we needed, or date range, or anything like that. So here you can see we have all our columns, and it tells you if there are any errors. It's saying everything is 100% valid, there are no errors. In this top heading block where it gives you the column name, it tells you what data type it is. So that's ABC, that means text, text, text. As we get to the numeric columns, because this is a Microsoft dataset, it's in very good shape. We can see that is a decimal and so on. But if, for instance, this was a text column, you would want to change it to a number. You could just click on the column, then right click, choose change type, and it would highlight the text because it would have been a text, and you can choose decimal, and it will convert the format of this column to a decimal so that we can perform calculations on it. If you ever see ABC 123 in a column, that means that Power BI can't define what data type it is. So here you can see there's ABC and this is 123. It knows that this is a number and it knows that this is text. If you ever see that ABC 123, that is one of the main things you should look out for, and you should go in and change it to either a text or a number by selecting the column, change type, and choosing whatever type you want. And you can see we've got date and time, date and time including time zone. Duration could be on a column that is the difference in time between two date fields, two date and time fields. That would give you the duration in either minutes or seconds or hours. You have your decimals, fixed decimal, whole number, etc. So that's how you can change the format of your columns. You can also, as I said before, if you were only looking at a particular date range, you could go click on the drop down arrow and you could filter anything before a certain date, after, between one date and the next, anything that is earlier or not earlier than a particular value in your column. So you can filter your data here to only look at the data set you would like to. You can go into any column that is a dimension, like I showed before, and you can filter by one or more of these. If you're never ever going to look at, for instance, Canada, you can remove Canada from here. And every time your data loads, it will always remove Canada. So if we do that, if you have a look on the right-hand side here, we have all of our applied steps to our data. So currently, these are the standard steps. We did click on that change type there. If we're going to now filter out Canada, we click OK. It's added a new step. And you can see when I click on that step, this formula bar is saying, for every country, don't include Canada. So it's added a step in here. We will no longer see Canada in our data. As we go through these, you can see what it's doing. This first step was where we clicked on the data set that we wanted, the financials data, and it had that second sheet. It then went and it navigated to the financials item that we chose. It figured out that it's a table and it created the data. It changed the type to text for all of the headings at the top. And now we're filtering where we don't want Canada. Now we would like to see all the countries. So if you ever do a step that you no longer want, you can just go to the little X here and you can take that away. So there will be a full advanced course on Power Query because you can see there's a lot of information you can, or a lot of options and a lot of functionality you can use here. For now, we just need to understand how to change the format of a field and to filter for this beginner course. So once we've done whatever we need to do, you can see we have an option here to either close and apply or close. We want to apply the changes and we want to go back to Power BI. So we click close and apply, and you can see it went through and it did whatever we asked it to do. So again, here we're back at our Power BI canvas. We look to transform data. This refresh button, if you click on this, it will go and refresh all the data sets that you're connected to. So it will go and pull in the latest copy of that data. New visual, that's self-explanatory. You can either drag and drop a visual from here, or you can click new visual here and choose one. You can add a text box for a heading. Perhaps you want to have a big heading across the top here. You can use a text box. More visuals, you can go to App Source, where people actually develop visuals for Power BI, and you can get them from there. Some of them are paid and some are free. You can have a look. A new measure, these are these formulas that we can create, like in Excel. They're called measures. Power BI offers quick measures where you can go and you can choose some predefined measures that you can just use the wizard to build for you. So if you're doing addition, subtraction, you can click on here and it'll prompt you through what you need to create that visual. I don't really use these. I find they're quite tricky to use, especially when I was a beginner in Power BI. It creates the entire formula for you. And if you ever need to tweak that formula, you don't actually understand what it did. So it can make it really, really complicated. It's better to try and build it from scratch. And then at least you understand what you've done along the way. And then once we've built what we need to build, we can publish this. That will publish our report to the Power BI service where our consumers can now view our report. If we go to the Insert tab, again, there's some repetition on these items, but it filters all the insert-related ribbon options. We can do new visual, more visual. There's a Q&A. This Q&A gives you the ability to actually write out a question, and Power BI will give you the response to that. So you could go, I'd like to find out what the sales are for Canada for Q1, and the Q&A will come back with the answer for your question. Key influences is a type of visual. It's more advanced. We'll look at that in the future. Our decomposition tree, that was the visual we looked at when we looked at our self-service page in the previous video. Smart narrative, again, is a written summary explaining your data. We have the options of adding paginated reporting. So if you've either created a Power BI paginated report, or if you know something like SQL Server reporting services, SSRS, you can add paginated reports to your Power BI. You can add Power App forms to your Power BI. So you might create a Power App. A Power App, just to go back a step, is a part of the Power Platform suite of products where you have Power Automate, you have Power BI, and you have Power Apps. So Power Apps is a app development tool where you can create mobile apps, where you can capture data. Power BI is the reporting tool we're learning today, and Power Automate is an ETL tool that can automate processes. So it can go and fetch data, it can pull data into your model, it can automate all kinds of manual processes. It can, move files, it can create PDFs, it can refresh your models. There's a whole bunch of things it can do. And each one of these are their own software tool that you can do training on and learn, but they all communicate with each other in the Power Platform. So you can embed all of these in your Power BI model. So if you have an app where you capture customer info, you can have that little form sitting in a Power BI report. Again, these are all quite involved topics. We won't look at them now, but this is just to explain what these icons are for. Again, here we can add a text box. We can add buttons. So you might want to have a forward, backwards, an info button, a help button, for instance. And we can also have a page navigator. This is a really, really cool feature that PowerBI have recently added. All the pages you have, like in the very first overview I showed you, I had that little navigator with all the different pages in a block. You can use a page navigator here and it'll add all the different pages you have into one navigation object. We can add shapes. So you might want to have a highlight or a backing around your title. You can put a rectangle around that and color it in. And you can add an image. So you might want to add an image of a logo, for instance. When we go to modeling, we can create a measure, a quick measure. We can add a new column to our existing tables. We can create a new table. We can create a parameter. This is a more advanced topic. We can manage roles, and we can view as a particular role. What this is, a role, you might have a role for Germany, a role for Canada, a role for France. And that means when you publish your report, anyone in Germany would only see the Germany numbers in your report, and anyone in Canada would see the Canada numbers. And maybe a head office person would see all the countries' numbers. That would be a role. So you can create roles where if somebody logs in and they are assigned a certain role, they can only see what that role allows them to see. And it's literally filtering the data by a specific dimension and showing them the result of that. And because you're building that, you would want to be able to view, can I log in as a person from Germany and only see Germany's data? You can view as a particular role that you've created. Q&A setup and language items, these are all a little bit more advanced topics that we can touch on in the future. Let's go to view. Here are your different themes. So these are the color palettes that will be used and font palettes that will be used in your report. So once we have a report, you can go and you can play around here and you can change the theme, which will change the colors in your report and the font and like all the stylistic options. So it'll change fonts, colors, bolding, etc. So you can choose that. Your page view, yeah, you can do this where you can have actual size fit to width or fit to page. The very nice feature in Power BI, you can create your report on a mobile layout. So when you've finished designing it perfectly for web, you can go and you can create a mobile view. Although Power BI does render to any device, so it will fit on your mobile phone, you might want to tweak a few things just to make it more usable if somebody logs in from a mobile device. Here you can view grid lines. If you want to have grid lines to align your visuals to, you can have snap to grid, where automatically the corners of your visual will snap to the grid layout in order to align objects perfectly, or you can lock objects. Here you can look at filters, bookmarks, selection. These are all more advanced topics here, bookmarks and selection, but a bookmark in layman's terms is where you might have a certain report that you always filter by Germany, by a particular month, by a particular person. You can create a bookmark for that. And then when you click on that bookmark, it'll always go back to however that report was filtered. So you don't have to keep going in every month. So if you are only interested in your own sales figures, you can create a bookmark on a report that has everyone's sales figures, and you can filter it by yourself, by your ID. And every time you just click on your bookmark that you've created, it will give you the report only with your information on. So it's just a bit of a time saver. Performance analyzers, this basically can show you which queries are running for what amount of time, normally in milliseconds, and you can see if a particular visual is making your report slow. Again, that's a more advanced topic. Syncing slices. Slices are the little drop downs that I had on my demo report that I showed you that you can filter your report by. You might not want to go and choose Germany on every page of your report. You can have it that when you choose Germany on your very first page, all the other slices will be in sync and also filter by Germany. Or you might want to not have that and you go in and you choose on every individual page. That's what that does. Optimize. This is all about the performance of your visuals, where you can pause the updating, you can refresh them to measure the time, and you can look at your optimization. Again, very advanced topic. We won't be touching on that in this course. Help. It's about the version. You have learning and training videos, documentation. There's a lot of support in the Power BI community. So you can find a lot of help through Power BI blogs, communities, development tools, etc. You can also get a lot of external tools that are built for Power BI. So if you click on that, you can go and have a look at external tools. And if you install any of those, they will show up here. So here are a few of the tools that can help you develop. We're not going to be using these in this course, but in the sort of intermediate to advanced training, we will be looking at that. So that is the menu items. On the side of your navigation pane, you have filters. So if you have any data on your page, all the fields that are on the page will appear on the side, and you can quickly, instead of adding drop downs or slices to your page, you can actually filter using this pane if you like. I find it more usable to have it as a slicer, but you can use this. We close the quick measure. Here we have our visuals, and here we have our data pane. At the bottom, we have our pages. If you want another page, you can click on the plus icon here. If you want to delete a page, you can click on the little X in the corner, and that deletes a page. You can also hide pages. You can duplicate pages. So if you've got visuals on here and you want to maybe have another page but just change a few things, you can duplicate it. You can rename a page, or you can double click and rename. And then we have our undo option. You've got to be quite careful in Power BI, because once you save, you've saved it. It can be quite tricky to, I don't rely very often on undo. I do save as, and I create different versions of my model as I go, so that if anything goes wrong, I can revert back to a previous version. But you can, if you've added a visual and you want to undo something, you can use the undo option here. But great, I think that covers everything I wanted to cover in this video. So we've gone through in the first video what we are going to build. In the second video, we've imported our data and we've gone through the navigation of Power BI, what the different menu items do. And in the next video, we will go through building our actual report suite. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.